Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is match preview time for game week 2 of Sky Bet League 2, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined by a friend of the channel now. As we look forward to Morecambe this weekend, is Dave Salmon, who is the voice of Morecambe FC and Beyond Radio, and dare I say it now, Dave, potentially Sky Sports Plus.
Well, who knows, Matt? Who knows? I don't think they've quite configured it out properly. I mean, if you watched any of the Sky Sports Plus streams over the weekend, it seemed a bit hit and miss about what team you're actually watching at any given moment, really. So I'm sure they'll work it out. I think a lot has been said about the Sky deal and the possible negative impacts on crowds and attendance, kickoff times, and all that kind of stuff. I think it can only be a positive thing. Personally, yes, it's a bit inconvenient for fans. You've got to get somewhere for a 12:30 kickoff. I mean, we've got a game on a Sunday afternoon, for example, in January, and that
Yeah,
kind of
snap.
stuff. And 8 o'clock on a Monday night, we're playing a game as well. But I think the financial rewards, certainly for clubs at our level, far outweigh those other negative issues. We all want to play at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, of course we do. But I think the financial benefits are going to far outweigh anything from that negative point of view. So I'm all for it. They just need to make sure that on Sky Sports Plus, the right teams are playing on the right channel when you click on the button.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, obviously, there's still a few questions raised and bits to iron out, of course. But yeah, I totally agree. I think like for clubs at our level, it's a huge amount of money to get in one go or in a couple of instalments over the season. So
Yeah.
it can only be a good thing. And yeah, I think we've had a couple changed over Christmas. I think one's moved a bit early, so now we've had to change the New Year's Day one, which is a little bit frustrating. I get that because it's traditional that we play on New Year's Day, but when the club's getting that amount of money, I'm guessing it's very difficult to turn down such a deal. Anyway, we're
Well,
not
I
here
I
to put.
was I was surprised at the actual figure. I won't actually say the figure because it's confidential information, but the
Mhm.
difference in the figure between I think he gave me the average 5 year I follow streaming revenue and what Sky are giving every single club per season, and the clubs as well. I follow still exists, remember, of course. So it's not. It's the only thing that's changed in I follow is domestic video passes that don't no longer exist. Everything else is the same on club streaming. So the two figures were that far apart. It's an absolute no brainer for the clubs really to take the deal, and hopefully it can work out for everybody.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You've just frozen there, Dave. I can still hear you, but your face is stuck in a very unflattering position. But we'll crack on regardless. There we go. He's back again. Anyway, we're not here to put Sky Sports to rights in the world. We're here to talk about Morecambe v Gillingham this coming Saturday, and obviously there's no form to go off. So in terms of last season, there wasn't actually a lot between the two sides, was there? I think if you take out your points deduction, um, you had 61 points from 46 games, and we had 64. But is it fair to say that there's a very different feeling around the two clubs this summer now?
No, there wasn't. There's been immense change, Matt. There's been immense change really over the summer for us. 17 new players come in, as has been widely reported. 15 in one day, but that wasn't
Mhm.
15 players signed in a day. That was 15 players registered in the day. They'd been with
Yeah,
the club for a good number of weeks before. Just because of our EFL embargo, we couldn't actually register them and announce them. We had to announce them all in one day because we were literally playing the pre-season friendly the day after, so we couldn't drip them out. We had to. Here we go. Here's 15 players all in one go. So it looked quite unusual. But the EFL embargo meant that they were signed as employees of the football club, but we couldn't register them as players to play in the EFL, and that was all resolved. And hopefully we can move onwards and upwards. But who we've got is in terms of our qualities, it's obviously quite another matter based on the budget that we've got this season.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about transfers. Then I'd written it down for later on in the video, but as we're there, let's go with it. I think is it 14 new arrivals, actual new signings, and then
Yeah,
more that were the ones that, like you say, like the Data Tondas and Jordan Slew, Guion Edwards,
yeah,
that type of thing that were already playing for you last season. But yeah, I
yeah.
take it that the media guy didn't fancy doing 15 announcement videos in one afternoon. Then probably not paid enough to do that, is he? To be fair, um, I've written down ones that I think maybe be key, and like you say, I think generally um, across people that talk about the EFL, I'm not going to say experts and include myself in that. Um, it's fair to say I think that most people are saying that Morecambe will struggle. and it'd be Derek Adams that's probably the difference potentially between relegation and a solid finish, relatively speaking, depending on what that is regarding your situation. I've written down three players that I thought were potentially key in terms of where you are at the moment and what they could bring, and that was George Ray, Jamie Stott, and Lee Angle. But for me, it's the biggest thing is the players that you lost, isn't it? Like there's straight away Farron Rawson, Jacob Badeau, JJ McKeon, and Joel Senior have all been massive players for you over recent times. And because of the situation behind the scenes, unfortunately, you've lost the spine of a very good football team. How do you see the squad at the moment? Is it a lot of essentially getting people in because we needed players and you've had to maybe just dilute the quality a little bit to be able just to build a squad to get yourselves going?
I think there's a little bit of that, Matt. Absolutely. The main part of it is we've got who we've got because of our low budget. It's as simple as that. And the reality of the situation is, yes, we've lost some very, very good players who were mainstays in our squad last season. A couple of them are now playing in League One. Joel Senior, JJ McKeon has started for Lincoln last Saturday, and we wish them all the best. If you're going to progress your career higher up the pyramid, fair enough. Some others we've lost to teams in League Two. Jacob Badeau went to Notts County. Farron Rawson, Donald Love to Accrington. So that's very much a sideways move, really. But it's also a stability move as well, because if they can get a 2-year contract and they're guaranteed that their wages are going to be paid on time every month, it's a no-brainer. For players at this level, your stability and your financial security is exactly what it should be all about. It's nothing to do with loyalty. I think a lot of the players who left in the summer would probably have wanted to stay at Morecambe. It wasn't that they didn't like playing for the club or anything like that. So we were where we were. So we ended up with 6 players from last season's squad. A total of 17 coming in, most of them new players, like you say. But if you look at who we've actually signed and how we've had to spread our budget, we've had to shop in the bargain bucket in some cases. And I don't mean that disparagingly to any of the players who have come in. They're all very, very good footballers. But the reality of the situation is we were signing players in the summer who last season was struggling in some cases to get into National League sides and even benches at on some cases. So with that in mind, that's where we're at in terms of the squad. We've also signed some quality players as well. You mentioned George Ray, their mainstay for Barrow last 2 seasons, looked great on Saturday against Walsall. Tom White, also from Barrow as well, very experienced midfielder. So we have got some quality, and the quality that remains from the summer as well. Let's not forget that players like Stuart Moore and Guion Edwards and Jordan Slew and the other people who we've kept. So we have got that quality, but I think it's fair to say that there are players in the squad who, for want of a better expression, we signed who we've signed because of the budget that we've got. And that's not to say the players aren't good footballers, but we know where we are as a club as well in terms of our financial situation at the moment. And it's all down. I won't harp on about the ownership, Matt, too much, because it's long drawn out and everybody knows what's going on at the moment. But the longer our ownership issue drags on, the more and longer it'll be that we haven't got any money to spend on players. So our squad will be what it will be.
But the caveat to that, and if there's one man that can galvanise and put a team together that's functional, that will get results, that will dig in, it's fair to say that Derek Adams is probably one of the best at doing that in this type of situation. Just how lucky are you to have Derek Adams again? And I know there's concerns, and you mentioned the squad, and I think that's probably the general consensus on social media that I've seen about Morecambe is there's probably 6, 7, 8 good solid League Two players, but after that, like you said, it's players that are going to have to prove a point and certainly step up in terms of where they've been the last couple of seasons to meet the levels that you need to have what I suppose would be deemed a good season. I suppose, and again, I mean this with the least disrespect, a good season for Morecambe at the moment is staying in League Two. But to push on into the sort of, the middle third, the safety and the nondescript mid-table area, you need probably a little bit more, or you need Derek Adams to be working his magic again, and he can do that, can't he?
Well, the one thing that Morecambe are renowned for, Matt, over a number of seasons is pulling players. I don't want to say pulling them out of the gutter because that's completely not fair, but getting the best out of players where perhaps they haven't been their best version of themselves at their previous clubs. And we look at players like, I'll give Cole Stockton as an example, very average scoring record until he signed permanently for Morecambe. We got promoted in the first season after he joined permanently. The second season, he scored 26 goals in League One. So we have this reputation of picking out players who perhaps haven't made it. Perhaps some other people on social media might think, well, you're not very good. You're on the scrap heap. Why the hell have you signed him? And getting the very best out of them. And I think that's what we need to do this season for sure, is we need to get every single last drop of ability out of every single player within our squad. And I think, as you've said quite correctly there, Matt, Derek Adams is exactly the man to do that. I'm personally delighted that he's back. I don't think he's ever going to have had quite the task on his hands that he's got this season. And I think the task this season perhaps even larger than trying to keep us in League One when we got promoted. I think it's probably a bigger ask because the budget is far lower, and with that the squad is what it is. But we are relying on players from hopefully who can make the step up. From non-league, who've had good careers in the National League, don't get me wrong, and I think early signs are quite encouraging. You mentioned Jamie Stott, for example. He's only played about 15 EFL games in his career. Most of he's 26, I think. Most of his career has been in the National League with Halifax. Played every second of every game for Halifax last season, and he looked great against Walsall last Saturday. He looked like he'd been playing in the EFL for years alongside George Ray. So players can make the step up from National League to EFL. There's no question about that. There's question marks on one or two others, of course. Who I think as the games progress, we hopefully we're going to see more of. But if there's one man who can get the very best out of meagre resources, it's Derek Adams. So when Jed Brandon left for Accrington in the summer, there was only one phone call to make, really. I don't think the job was advertised. I think our chairman, Rod Taylor, just phoned Derek, and it was as simple as that.
And I guess the silver lining to the situation that you're in, and it's not a nice one, there's no point dressing it up, is the fact that you get these players in and that mixture with your fan base and people like yourself who work around the club, who clearly love the club and want the best for it, unlike one individual, which we might talk about in a second. So it creates that siege mentality. And you've also then got players that do want to prove a point, like you say, like the Jamie Stotts of this world, who are stepping up from the National League, or you might have someone else like Dave Salmon last season, who got released by Gills, who were probably deemed to the outsiders looking in a bigger and a better team than Morecambe. And he's gone there and gone, no, I'm going to show you that I'm still a good left back at the level. So if you're looking for that positive, it is that you are going to create this very much a siege mentality, us against the world. And it's certainly stood you in good stead over the last few seasons. Firstly, getting into the Football League, getting into League One. And certainly you're going to need that now, aren't you?
I think so, Matt. I think probably more than we ever have, to be honest. You need to remember that the players that Derek has brought in, he has obviously seen something in them that he believes is a good fit for Morecambe. And I think when Derek Adams signs a player, he doesn't just sign the player on ability, he signs them, he looks them in the eyes, and he assesses whether or not they're going to be good for the squad, they're going to be good in and around the whole environment of the football club, and whether they're going to fit in to the way that Derek wants to play football. Yeah, siege mentality, I think, is a very good way of describing it. I think we're going to be grinding out a lot of results this season. That's partly the way that Derek plays, of course. He likes to play counter-attacking, soak up the pressure, hit on the break football. Didn't work at all against Walsall last Saturday, but it's the first game of 46 league games. So I think to have a knee-jerk reaction of, well, that wasn't very good, was it? I think Walsall were pretty good last weekend, to be honest. They completely nullified us. We couldn't get going at all in the final third. Defensively, we looked pretty solid. So there's lots to work on. After a game, it's very hard to make an assessment, of course, but it all comes back around to that point that we are hanging our hats on to quite a large extent, actually, players who weren't playing in the Football League last season. and a couple of other cases, they've not played in the Football League at all in their careers. And they are probably going to be mainstays of the first team squad this season. And we're also hoping that our old favourites, the likes of Dave Salmon, and who play, very well, of course, Matt, and Guion Edwards and Stu Moore, and our other more established senior pros in the squad, they can get to the levels that we know that they are capable of, because we saw them do that last season. So a bit of a job on, like you say, but hard to judge after one game. But I think that siege mentality is certainly will certainly stand us in good stead going forward for sure.
Absolutely, and like you said, it's one game. It's 46 to there's 45 to go. There's still 135 points to play for. We're nowhere near, I don't think, for any club. I mean, I spoke to a Carlisle fan after our win at the weekend and asked the question and said, like, what's the situation around Paul Simpson because of the relegation last season and stuff like that. But you can't be making an assessment on an entire season based on 90 minutes. And I mean, I've only had extended highlights, sort of 3 or 4 minutes that I've watched on Sky Sports of your game. So again, you can tell me more. But I just obviously look at the stats. The issue was clearly in the final third, no shots on target. I think the only clip or two of Morecambe from an attacking sense was, I think, one that Jordan Slew skewed across out of play for a goal kick, and that had to go in the highlights. So that shows you where that problem was. But yeah, you've only lost 1-0 to a side who I think may struggle a bit more than they did last season because of the fact that they've lost a really good player in Isaac Hutchinson. But you looked competitive, and you know you're going to get that from Derek Adams' sides. The bits I saw was it just looked like you was a bit easy to get in and around your box. But if you've watched the whole game, you can correct me on that. I know the goal comes from a defender, so you can ask questions, but it's a good hit. So you have to say fair play to the lad Taylor Allen. It's a really good goal. But yeah, that was all I took of what I saw of limited segments of the game. But I've literally written down big churn of players, the current situation, and it will take time. It's not going to be instant. And every manager says, let's have a look after 10, 12 games and see where we're at.
I think that's very fair, Matt. Walsall were okay, actually. I think they look very neat and tidy. They've not got much up front at the moment because of injuries and lack of recruitment in the transfer window. So they've got who they've got up front. Their goal was a wonder hit from one of their defenders, volleyed it into the bottom corner from 25 yards. Could we have closed him down a bit better on the edge of the box? Yeah, probably, but it was still a great hit. That's probably what once in 100 hits that goes in, that flies in. They had one other good chance that our keeper made a good save from. Wanted one to make, I think, but still a good save. Yep. Our keeper tipped a corner onto the bar, and that was the closest they came, really. Were they good value for the win? Yes, probably Walsall did deserve all 3 points. I wouldn't argue against that at all. But what I would also say is on another day, we could have scabbed a 0-0 draw, a smash and grab point back up the road, and it would have suddenly been a very good start to the season. Our issue was we couldn't get anything going in the final third. It wasn't like us at all, because you'll know Derek Adams' team, Matt. We soak the pressure up and then we hit on the break with pace and precision. Not long ball, but get up to the top end of the pitch as quickly as possible and try and create those chances. We couldn't get our attacking options in the game. I didn't think we particularly got a grip on the midfield, really. I think Derek's selections didn't quite work out the way he wanted to. That's why he changed it around at half time. Brought Tom White off the bench, who looked great in the centre of the park. And the second half, I'd say for 20 minutes, we were probably the better team in terms of general possession and passing it about, and we looked quite crisp and quite sharp, and we just couldn't fashion that opportunity, really. We had a couple of efforts over the bar from distance, but nothing on target, and that was the frustrating thing, as we didn't look at any point during the games if we were going to come anywhere close to unlocking the door, really. And that's the one thing that's got to change. I was relatively happy at the back. I'm delighted we've got Stuart Moore back between the sticks this season after his bad injury last year. He looked absolutely terrific. I think he's probably going to be one of the best keepers in League Two this season. George Ray looked great, came off at half-time with a niggle, so hopefully he's going to be all right for Saturday as well. Jamie Stott looked great alongside him as well. Dave Salmon was very solid at left back. Didn't offer much going forward as much as we would have liked, but defensively he was absolutely fine. And we looked okay on the right side too with Luke Hendry. So I'm happy at the back. It's the middle and the upper thirds that I think we need to see a bit more from.
Just to link that to us, it would concern me. That sounds very much like us 22, 23, when we went through half a season and scored 6 goals, because I think we rarely got spanked. But the trouble was the longer that season went on until the takeover, it was just a case of, oh, we're 1-0 down, we might as well go home. And again, it's a very small segment of the season, so we're not going to say that you're going to go down that route just yet. But yeah, they have to be concerning signs. One thing that did surprise me was 62% possession. That was very, very high for a Derek Adams side. Like you say, you like to play on the counter attack, so I thought they'd got that the wrong way round on the app that I use. But
no, we had lots of the ball,
just in the wrong areas and couldn't do anything with it, unfortunately.
No.
Well, but like we say, 45 games, 135 points to play for. In terms of this Saturday, I've written down key players. I've actually written George Ray and Jamie Stott. I thought as a centre back pairing, you're going to have them as being solid generally to give yourself a chance in games. And the other one, just to get someone at the top end of the pitch, was Gwion Edwards. I think he's been made captain now. We know he's got pedigree from his time at Ipswich and Peterborough going back a few years. And if you can keep him fit, then yeah, he should be a very good player. And you've got experience. That was another thing that made me sort of jumped off the page. Was there was a lot of experience on the bench and not starting in Yan Songu and Jordan Slew, Lee Angle. Was that just tactical, or have they been carrying knocks, or is that just the route Derek Adams wants to go?
No, I think it was just the team that Derek happened to pick on the day. Really, we looked great. We played Burton Albion in our final pre-season friendly the previous Saturday, and we went 2-0 up. They scored late in the second half, and it was a 2-2 draw. I mean, I don't really pay much attention to results in pre-season games. It's all about performance and fitness for me, and we looked really good. We were passing it about. We scored 2 terrific goals from Ben Tollett, who's one of those players who is 29. He's never played. It was his, I think it was only his 5th EFL game on Saturday. He's played all of his career in National League or National League North. Looked great in pre-season. Absolutely anonymous on Saturday. It's just one of those games, really. And he's one of those players I'll say we are trusting is going to make the step up, because he's going to be playing every single week. We have got experience and quality, like you say, Matt. I'm happy at the back. George Ray is a great pickup for us. Can't believe Barrow have released him, to be honest. I think he's one of the best defenders in League Two. But having lost Jacob Badeau and Farron Rawson, we needed another solid central defensive pairing. And I think to pick George Ray up and Jamie Stott, played every single second for Halifax last season, looked great, saw him in the playoffs and he looked a solid player. Obviously, well good enough for EFL football. So fingers crossed they can stay fit. Our goalkeeper, Stuart Moore, as I've alluded to already. So we've got the basis at the back of not having any problems. So it's how much pressure we get put under due to perhaps inefficiencies elsewhere on the pitch that might put our defence under some undue strain. I'm not sure we've quite worked out the midfield just yet. I'd like to see Tom White start on Saturday. Came off the bench at half-time. Again, another player who I was very surprised that Barrow released in the summer. Good pickup for us. Probably one of our marquee pickups, I would say, within the constraints of our budget. And then we need to keep Gwion Edwards fit, like you say. He's far too good for League Two, Matt. He's amazing. He didn't show much of it on Saturday. He's been playing on the left during pre-season, and he played on the left of a three on Saturday. I prefer to see him either through the middle or out on the right hand side. So it wouldn't surprise me on Saturday if Gwion doesn't move across to the right, and maybe we might start Jordan Slew on the left, perhaps for that physical presence down that left hand flank. But if we can keep Gwion fit and firing, he's.
Sorry, I was just going to say that was your left hand side last
season
when we played you, wasn't it? I think Slew was in front of Tatonda when we came to your place.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. But because we started Ben Tollett, we've moved Gwion, who Derek seems to like, and I say pre-season, he does look a really good player, to be honest. That meant Gwion's moved across to the left-hand side, and I suppose the JJ McKeon replacement, if you will, is a guy called Harvey McAdam, who we got from Fleetwood Town, signed him on a permanent deal. Young's about 23, I think he is. Already got a good number of EFL games under his belt in League One and League Two. Fleetwood, Charlie Adam didn't fancy him, so he's come across to us again. Has looked good in pre-season. Was quite anonymous on Saturday. more to come from him, hopefully. So a bit of a mixed bag, really, Matt. We haven't got what you call an out-and-out goal-scoring striker in the squad. I mean, not many teams have nowadays, have they, really? But we've got experience in Hallam Hope, who's played about best part of 300 games in the EFL. Got a reasonable scoring record. I think he's got about 70 goals in 300 games, something like that, which isn't to be sniffed at, is it? And we've also got Lee Angol, like you say, vastly experienced in the Football League, a proper big number 9, if you will. Came off the bench on Saturday, but again, played for Sutton United last season. They didn't fancy him. He ended the season at Woking in the National League and couldn't get in their team. So, and that's what I'm talking about we are trying to not resurrect players' careers necessarily. That's probably overstating it, but certainly experienced players are at the club with plenty to prove. That's for sure. So going forward, that's where we need to be, I think.
Final question. You know what it's going to be. The dreaded score prediction.
Well, I must be honest, Matt. I like your squad this season very much. I think you are one of the bookies' favourites to be in and around the promotion mix, and I think that is justified, as I'm sure you probably agree. And the reason for that is, one, your manager. I think you've got a great manager in Mark Bonner. I think that is a very progressive appointment. Knows what it takes to get the best out of League Two and how to win games in this division. You kept the vast majority of your squad together in the summer. All of the players who you'd want to keep, you've kept. And you have added quality in the areas that were lacking, specifically, as we've alluded to, in the final third. Now, I think I'm right in saying that Elliot Nevitt got injured last weekend, so that might be a bit of a blow for you, perhaps. But
Elliot Nevitt's been injured for most of pre-season.
Right, so there you go. But he scored 25 goals last season. You know what he's going to bring to the table. I like your other strikers. I think Josh Andrews is going to be a great signing for you as well once he gets fully up to speed. I like Zamani Little very much when he played for AFC Wimbledon last season. Ran the show against us in both the games. I think he's going to be a terrific player, and that will allow the likes of Johnny Williams to have perhaps more of a central, more of a free role perhaps than what he was alluded to last season. And you've kept your defence pretty much intact as well, which I think was pretty solid last season. So I think you put all those together, you're onto a bit of a winner there. I think, like you say, that match is only one game in, and a lot can happen. I think you got off to the best possible start against Carlisle, and things can only get better. We've got yourselves, and then we've got Doncaster next the Saturday after as well away. So that's not a great start to our league campaign, really. So we'll have to see. The one thing that Derek made the Mazuma in his previous 2 spells was a bit of a fortress. We were terrible on the road, but very, very hard to beat at home. And I think if it's the same this season, that should be enough to pull us clear of any relegation trouble. So I think we're in for a very, very tough game. I think we're going to play 4-2-3-1 against you, as is Derek's way. I would certainly take a draw now, given what we saw last Saturday. Something to build on, a much better performance. And if we can get the attacking, or if we can unlock our creativity in the attacking third, that's going to be the key. If it's like last Saturday and we can't get any shots on goal, then you'll be going back down south with all 3 points, I'm sure. But I would go with head and heart, Morecambe 1, Gillingham 1.
Fair enough. I've gone for a Gillingham win. Obviously, again, we keep saying it. We're basing it on one game for each side, and I'm basing it on. Although when I said I only saw 3 minutes of highlights, and then you gave an overview of the game, I think I literally saw all of the big moments then, because that was literally what I saw, what you said. Yeah. So I didn't really need to watch the entire 90 minutes. But I'm going to go. I think the first goal will be key, and I know that's a massive cliche, because I think if we can come up there and score early, then you're going to struggle. But the longer that it stays 0-0, I think obviously your crowd will get up and you'll grow in confidence and you might fancy it. But I'm going to back us with our new found scoring prowess. I'm going to say 2-0 to Gills. I think we might score first half, and then you'll stay in the game, but we'll pinch another one on the break second period.
I think that's going to be the key for us, Matt, is keeping the back door locked. there are question marks over us in the final third. There has to be, and the reason for that is you look down our squad, and probably on Edwards' aside, we haven't got, certainly on paper, we haven't got the stats to back up anything to say or to suggest that we're going to be full of goals this season. I hope we're wrong. Hallam Hope has had really good scoring seasons in the past. He's not played in the amount of games he's played in the EFL if he's not a good player. Lee Angol is the same. We've also got Charlie Brown, of course, who wasn't in the squad on Saturday. I'm not sure whether Derek fancies him too much, actually. For me, he's a great player to at least have on the bench, if not to start. Signed by Derek, didn't get a kick under Derek. When Derek left, Jed Brannan then brought him into his team, played really well. Jed's now left, Derek's back. Charlie Brown is back to square one again. So hopefully we can see him
score in the game last season. Excuse me, scored in the game last season, didn't he? Open.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I thought.
And he can play through the middle. He can play as number 10. He can play wide on the right. Maybe he had a niggle. I don't know, but hopefully he's going to come into the reckoning in the coming weeks. We're going to need Gwion Edwards to score his share. We're going to need Ben Tollett to score his share as well. We're going to need Jordan Slew to replicate the season. Jordan Slew probably had his best ever AFL season last season. Played almost 50 games, into double figures for goals, a few assists as well, and just looked really comfortable on that left-hand side. So it wouldn't surprise me if he starts on Saturday, and maybe Gwion across on the right-hand side. But certainly scoring goals or an attacking threat is the one area where we need to we need to work on. I'm relatively happy that we're going to be all right at the back. But as you know, as you said, Matt, from a couple of years ago, you can be tight as you like at the back, but if you keep losing games 1-0, you're not getting anywhere, are you? So it's as simple as that, really.
Dave, as always, been a real pleasure. Really like picking your brains about all the goings on at Morecambe, and I do mean this when I say it, because I've been up to Morecambe and I speak to you and Tom, who does Shrimps Online, and James and Charlie. I've said it hundreds of times and I'll say it 100 more. There's some really, really good people and some good supporters of that football club, and I really hope you do get yourself sorted out and can move forward sooner rather than later. And I do wish you all the best, aside from Saturday and whenever the return fixture is, of course.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed on the ownership, Matt. The latest update we had is that our trust, the Shrimps Trust, had their AGM last week, and it was announced then that they are under the impression that an offer has been accepted for the club from our previous owner, Jason Whittingham and Bond Group, and it's awaiting more details from the EFL and obviously the due process that goes through. That was 4 or 5 days ago. Not heard anything about that since. So until that happens, we will just rumble on and just continue on as we're doing. But I think the fact remains, without banging on about our ownership, because everybody knows our long-standing our issues. The longer that the club remains unsold, the longer the uncertainty goes on, and we can't be going month by month. Are we going to be paid? Fingers crossed we're going to be paid at the end of this month. And then going into games, and we haven't got any money, any budget for any more transfers. Derek said in his pre-match last week that the pot is empty. We have spent all of our budget, and you can see the squad that we have assembled with that budget. So we need to move forward, and we can only move forward with another owner. Whether a new owner is any better is obviously a completely different argument entirely. I mean, that will all depend on who a new owner is. We have to trust the EFL process, that whoever the owner is, they passed the owners and directors test, so we'd have to take it on their word that they would have the best interests of the club at heart and would be able to fund the club properly going forward. And fingers crossed as a resolution, because it's been going on for 2 years now, and we've sailed through some very, very choppy waters. I spoke to the local newspaper reporter for Walsall last weekend. He said to me, what would be a good season for Morecambe? And I said to him, to still have a football club this time next season, still be talking to you, and we're both in the EFL, and I still stand by that. I think most supporters stand by that as well. If we can stay out of relegation trouble and stay in business, more to the point, I think we'll be on to an absolute winner this season. But early days, Matt, and a lot can happen. But I think there's going to be some twists and turns to come. That's for sure. Yeah. But your love and affection, and it's not just Gillingham; it's across the football pyramid, really. Just be known that it's really appreciated by every single Morecambe fan and player and everybody at the club as well.
No, absolutely, because we've seen it happen too often over the last few years with like Macclesfield and
Yeah.
Bury and stuff like that, and it shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be allowed to happen. And
No.
at the end of the day, we should all have a football club to be able to go and support on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday evening. So I do wish you all the best.
Well, I'm looking forward to the game. Are you coming up, Matt? Are you coming up to the game? I know you're up
I'm
last
not
season.
not this week, unfortunately. No, got a family arrangement this week, so having to miss it, and then on the bus for Fleetwood the week after. So still not getting out of the early
Oh, we
starts
got
entirely.
Morecambe and then Fleetwood in the consecutive weeks.
Yeah, and because obviously we're recording this on Monday, just for fans that are wondering why we've not spoken about the EFL Cup games, we're recording this on Monday because we're busy later in the week. So yeah, we've got a trip to Swansea in the middle of the week in a regionalised tour tie as well. So yeah,
That's bad. We've got AFC Wimbledon away on a Tuesday night in a month's time. So I feel your pain. But yeah, you can't go to Morecambe and then Fleetwood the week after and Swansea in the middle. That is a bit of a killer, to be honest.
yeah, it's not an ideal start in terms of away days, which is I think is why we don't like this division so much because it's far too based. We keep looking at
Well,
League
we quite
One.
like it actually because it's a bit more northern and centralised this season. So we've probably got about. I mean, we are apart from Carlisle, we are the most northerly club in the division. I mean, Carlisle against Gillingham on the opening. I mean, what a fixture! That pulled out. I mean, that's ridiculous, isn't it? But I suppose you've got to play everybody at some point during the season, so it
Absolutely.
all works out, doesn't it?
Yeah, and if I was a Carlisle fan, I'd rather have done it on a Saturday in August when it was 25 degrees than probably a
Oh
Tuesday
hell
in
yeah,
February,
absolutely.
so when it was minus 24 degrees. But anyway, everybody, Gills fans, Morecambe fans, and neutrals, if you are still watching at this point, then thank you very much. Please do go and follow Dave because he's brilliant at what he does and he's a really, really passionate fan of his football club. So I'll put his details in the description at the bottom of this video, like I always do. I believe we may, in the last couple of days, hit 3,300 subscribers on the channel. So again, thank you very much for that. Your support is always really, really appreciated. Please keep telling everybody about us. Please keep hitting that subscribe button because all you need is a Google Mail account. It's absolutely free. As I've said, unfortunately, not making the trip to Morecambe next week. So we'll have to try and find where we can watch reruns of the game so we can do match day review. But until then, I hope you have a good week and up the Gills.